Welcome back, everybody, to the Capital Contribution Live, the show that's bringing you the basics of things you should have learned in high school. My name is Yuri. I am the owner and operator of Capital and Associates, the fund CPA, bringing you value at every step of the way, every turn of the way. And as we wrap up this season now, we're in season 1, episode 3, and it's going to be the last one. You're going to be the one wrapping it up, Roman.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me that opportunity to wrap it up.
Best for last, maybe? I don't know. Maybe if the other guys heard that, they're going to get jealous. But Roman Balandin of the Roman Balandin Realty is one of the premier agents, the top agents in the area, Monmouth County, right?
Monmouth Ocean. I mean, we do business all over New Jersey.
Amazing. And having you on the show, personal to me, because you helped me both sell my house and your agents within your agency have helped me buy my new home. So having the communication with you was very smooth. I really enjoyed it. And it's awesome.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
What did we sell your house for? Highest home sale in the community.
That's right. It was.
And it will be for the next probably 10 years.
I honestly think it was nuts. And I was mind blown. And you were like a magician over there, man. And
I told you step by step.
You did. You took it step by step. And I think having your guidance in the process has helped me tremendously, because the reality of it is, from my position as a buyer or a seller, right, I think of the whole process starting with the realtor. Why? Because in my mind, if I want to go look at a house, I don't think, I'm going to talk to the mortgage guy to go look at a house, right? No, I got to find a realtor. And how do you find a realtor? Most of the time, it's like Zillow searching, and then their name pops up or you go and you make an appointment on Zillow, right?
Yep.
And then you're a realtor. So what I want to do is I want to get your perspective as someone who is well-versed in the industry, one of the top realtors, if not the top realtors in the area, an extremely extensive background, and just a phenomenal person, like as an individual.
Thank you.
So I want to take it to kind of walk me through, how do you become a realtor? What considerations would you, what makes a good realtor in your eyes? So take us through that, and just take us through your journey too, because I know there's some background to your story too before the realtor.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I wanted to say the actually correct way of starting your real estate search is to go to your local bank or to your mortgage broker.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, you need to know how much you can afford before wasting your time and anybody's time.
That's a great point.
So, however, a lot of buyers out there, they go directly to a realtor, and then you start the process.
Right.
But talking about realtors, how do you find a good realtor? How do we function? How do I function? I wanted to say first and foremost, I look at it that I'm a consultant.
Right.
I am not necessarily there to help them buy a house or sell a house, but I will consult them throughout their transaction process.
Right.
I think that's the right way of looking at it, because, and obviously with that kind of mindset, I come in and I tell them pros and cons.
Right.
I would never steer them in one certain direction or the other, but I tell them, hey, that's the pros of this way of doing business and that business. Right.
And that makes sense. And so from your story, take us kind of where'd you go to school? How did you get into becoming a realtor? Because I know you got a little bit of an interesting path, a little bit of a unique path.
Yeah, no, it's a long story, but I'll try to sum it up.
Hit us.
Yeah, I went to Rutgers University, graduated with a computer science degree. Graduated during .com boom.
Oh, wow.
Well, actually, right after everything failed.
Right.
I worked as a programmer for about a year or two, and then the new industry was booming, which is finance industry.
Wow, yeah. Right.
So, understanding that I do need to make money, because at that point I was starting to build a family, I went into financial industry and I worked in hedge funds for 12 years.
Wow.
I got from entry level to a vice president position.
Wow.
And somewhere along the lines, I started thinking about plan B.
Okay.
I was always interested in real estate, owning your own houses. I don't remember what kind of book I read back then, but making money while you sleep.
Oh, yeah. That's
right. That was my thing. Let me sleep, make money, get a couple of rental properties. But working in real estate as a part-timer, I slowly started to ramp up my, closings.
Wow.
And it turned out to be that I was actually a pretty good realtor. And I would approach every single customer with that type of perspective. Hey, I'm a consultant. Not only I know real estate, I know finance. I can educate them about, real estate and finance, and putting both things together.
Right.
I guess helped me out in progressing in real estate. It became a point, well, somewhere along the lines I started building in Philadelphia, so I was a developer.
Oh, wow.
And I started doing flips locally. So having a full-time job, being in hedge funds.
That's a lot of hours too.
Yeah. Being a realtor, developing in Philly and doing local flips, it was kind of, I was never home.
Yeah.
So it came to me that I had to give up something.
Yeah.
And I chose to give up my full-time job, my corporate world, because I saw that there is no glass ceiling in real estate. And plus, I was at that time, I think I was about 5-6 years in real estate, and I knew that I can make it.
Wow.
And my goal was to actually not to be a realtor.
Yeah.
One of the things that I feel a corporate world is not offering is knowledge about, when you're in a corporate world, you kind of wearing a horse blinds and you're running with everybody in the corporate world, whatever they're doing.
That's so true.
Whatever they're associating with, that's what you do.
Yep.
So the fact that the real estate, why I was also attracted in real estate is meeting those people, the entrepreneurs. Why are some people are buying $1 million homes?
Yeah.
What are they doing? Yeah. So I had kind of in my head that, well, you know what? I wanted to understand what they're doing, and not necessarily do what they do, but maybe apply in my life, in my future career. Right. So those two motivating factors, the fact that, I always wanted to own some real estate property as a backup plan, and also learn about, how certain people are successful, how are they getting there. I felt like corporate world was not giving that to me.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and when you started, what year was it when you started?
2009.
2009. So after the crash of 07, 08, whatever.
Yep.
You started. So you went into the real estate school, right? So basically just did the courses.
Yeah, back then they didn't have online classes. So I went part-time. So I would work from 7 to 5 or 6 at that time, and then evening time I would take classes. I think it took me 8 weeks.
Yeah, I kind of remember I became a realtor in 08, but then it lapsed.
Oh, you did too?
Yeah, I did.
Oh.
Yep. But then it lapsed, so I didn't really do much with it because I was in school and it was too difficult, to do both school and then go to open houses and all that. But I got a little bit of a flavor for it. But where I was going with this is, so when you finish the school, you have to hang up your license with a brokerage. So what was the first brokerage that you were?
So back then, I did not know how to interview brokers.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little advice a little bit later, but literally at school they said, hey, listen, there's this big top companies.
Yeah.
I felt like, well, a big name, such as Keller Williams, Remax, Century 21 would be great because I'm beginning agent, and that's a mindset of every single agent.
Yep.
They're thinking that they're new in this industry, so having a big name is actually going to do great because everybody knows that name. So I was in the same mindset too. And funny enough, no offense against any other brokerages or like that, I got a mentor. So the first brokerage that I went to, fortunate and unfortunate that I never met that mentor in person.
How did that work out? They never showed up, or?
Yeah, no, they were really, really successful and really, really busy to even talk to me. All the questions that I had, they said that, hey, Roman, why don't I call you in 10 minutes? And that 10 minutes lasted a couple of days.
Yeah.
Or, hey, Roman, stop in the office. I'll show you how to do contracts, and stop in the office, and they were busy making money.
Yeah.
So I felt that, hey, listen, after a few weeks, I kind of felt like, well, I got to figure it out myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. It's a lot of people in many industries will go through that process of trying to figure out, how am I become successful? Who's going to hold me through it and teach me in it? And hedge funds are the same. Accounting is the same, and a lot of people are so busy that you really don't have a lot of time for you, but you got to learn how to hone your craft. And I think probably it was easier for you in some extent, right? Because you've had 12 years in the industry. And I feel like a lot of the realtors' challenges, I mean, and what you deal with too is a lot of psychology, right?
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with people's largest purchase of their lives. right? And where I kind of want to focus this from a value perspective, you gave a great suggestion, talk to the mortgage lender first, because again, a lot of people are thinking, I got to talk to the realtor first.
Yeah.
You know, I got to go see that house. I got to go see it. So walk us through, you know, from your perspective as someone who is very experienced, has been in the industry for a while now, has had to learn on their own. What suggestion would you have to a seller? I want to start with the seller because I think we had a big focus on the buyer from the other episodes that we've had. Let's talk about the seller. So let's just talk about someone who wants to list their home, is nervous about the process. What advice would you have to someone who is looking to list it?
In terms of how to choose a realtor?
In terms of how to choose a realtor and things to consider.
Well, I wanted to say, first of all, a lot of realtors, they come in and they say, hey, listen, I'm a top real estate agent in this area.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really great, you know, that you sell a lot of homes. First question would be, well, you know, do you do everything yourself?
Right.
Because, I mean, realistically, they could be a top real estate agent, but they get that buyer or seller, they put them into the contract, and then, you know, you can call them day and night and they'll never answer the phone because they know they did their job. Attorneys and the rest of the crew is working on the rest of the transaction. So if you have an agent that closes, you know, 20, 30 deals, 40 deals a year,
right,
and doesn't have a back office, doesn't have assistant, doesn't have a marketing team, doesn't have none of those things, so most likely expect them list your house and be MIA.
Right.
Because they're too busy and they already signed that contract with you.
Yeah,
so that's one thing. How big is your team?
Right.
You know, and how big is your team now, not in terms of brokerage, but who's going to be working on this transaction?
Right. Is it going to be the person that came to your house that first time, or is it going to be someone else you've never spoken to? And what you said about marketing, I like too, because that made me remember when you came to our house. Again, you know, there were packets. I know, you know, the videographer, the photographer you use is phenomenal. You've also have resources within, you know, Zillow and other blast out the house in many ways. So that was one of the cool things that differentiated you.
Well, here's what I wanted to say. Also, when you're listing a house, why is it important to ask how many transactions did the person close? Right? Think about this. An average agent is lucky enough to close one transaction a month.
Wow.
Right? And that's not even statistics. It's a, you know, mediocre agent.
Right.
Typical agent closes between, I mean, you could look at the statistics on Google, but 5 to 7 homes a year.
Right.
Right? So another aha moment you as a seller should have, well, this person is working by himself or herself, you know, closing 30 to 40 transactions, or maybe 14 or 10, right? Now, do they really have enough money to market my property?
Right.
Right.
And when you say, do they have enough money, you mean kind of internally, like within their structures and how they...
Either their structure or, I mean, you are technically signing the contract with a brokerage.
Right.
However, that agent is using their funds to advertise your property.
Ah, okay. I see what you're saying.
So maybe a lot of people have misconception that if they're signing up with big brokerage, that's all the funding comes from brokerage, but realistically, it's from that listing agent.
Wow.
So if they're selling 10, 14 homes a year, do they really have that budget to actually do a 3D Zillow tour?
Right.
Right? Retargeting ads to New York.
Right.
Right? Google ads, Facebook ads, you know, bring that photographer that doesn't cost $300 but costs a couple of $1,000s. Why? Because you need that sharp, perfect pictures, sharp, perfect videos that's going to attract those buyers.
Right. And you need to understand your market. So having someone who understands the market is super important. A lot of the times as a seller, you're going to get a referral from someone else who sold their home. But what really sells a realtor? Oh, my experience was great because I got top dollar, right? But beyond that, what should people ask about the budget? They say, you know, what's your budget like for...
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say what's your budget. You know, what do you offer?
Right.
You know, some of the realtors, they come in, hey, listen, with my, you know, with my services, you get syndication to Zillow, Trulia, Realtor, everywhere.
Right.
You as a seller, you're like, wow, this guy is really good. I mean, all of those syndications there for free.
Right. Interesting.
Right. Versus when you sign up with Roman Balandin Realty,
right,
we are a premier agents across all of those platforms. What is the difference between premier agent and a typical agent.
Yeah, what is the
So
difference?
all our listings, they're actually on the front page, and they're all the way at the top because I am paying a lot of money on a monthly basis to all of those platforms.
Right. So you're getting more exposure to the properties
Exactly.
than just a regular, any agent that's putting in the MLS. What is it? Multiple listing service?
Multiple listings.
Right. So any agent is going to put it up there. It's going to go already.
But they're going to be on a second, third page, and so on and so forth. Versus, I mean, you remember when we were selling your house,
Right.
or when you were buying the house.
Right.
You clicked on that perfect house.
Yeah.
You don't want to see anything else.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You wanted to see that house. You called me, and you called one of my colleagues, and you said, Roman, I wanted to see that house.
Yeah.
So how did we create that effect when we were selling your house? Well,
That's
we
right.
created the same effect.
That's right.
But it takes pictures, videos, advertisement.
Yeah.
It takes all of that, and especially it takes being right there on the first page, all the way on top, on that page, because that buyer is going to take a look at it and they're going to be like, I don't care about anything else. I wanted to see your house.
You want to see that house. Yeah. And what about from the perspective of the seller? The reality of it is when you're living in a house for such a long time, you have stuff, you have obviously belongings, things of that nature. It can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes to really think about, I don't want to take it away, but I want to make it sellable. What is your advice usually to the sellers for making it sellable?
So that's a good point. And one of the things that we offer is staging consultation.
Right.
A lot of realtors, they come in and they say, hey, listen, you need to clean up all your countertops, declutter, things like that. But what I do for my sellers is I bring a staging consultation to their house, and they go over whether it takes half an hour. I mean, sometimes we actually have to remove the furniture and put it into garage.
Wow.
For some of our sellers, because to make that first impression,
right.
to make those pictures perfect. Now, listen, don't forget, it's only for one day, just for pictures, and then you can bring all the junk and go back to your normal life. But that first shot, first moment when those buyers are looking at your house, it has to be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And especially, like, it's like pictures are worth 1,000 words. And I think that, like you said, the high-end photographer, the consultations, the staging, and making sure that everything is aligned to make sure that you get the top dollar is really what you and your team do phenomenally.
Well, once again, I look at it as we're consultants.
Right.
So I'm going to lay out a plan and strategy how to list your house. If you remember, we did that.
I remember.
Both in terms of the pricing and in terms of the advertising, right? And at the end of the day, you could take it or you could say, hey, Roman, well, I'm going to go with somebody else who doesn't have a plan.
Right.
At the end of the day, my job is to explain to you what tools would sell your house
right
for top dollar.
That's right.
Right? And it's up to you whether you see that, that will help you or doesn't believe it or not. I mean, some people, they don't understand. They're so stuck in their old ways.
Yeah.
They don't see how online marketing or social media marketing is going to really, help them.
Right.
How it's going to create massive exposure, and they don't understand that somebody can actually click or comment or DM and say, hey, I'm interested in that house.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and they say, hey, Rowan, I don't need that service.
And a lot of times for that service, it's a pricing point maybe I don't kind of recall because, to me, it all came as a package with you, right?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, at the end of the day, the goal is to get the top dollar, right? Think about this. How do you get the top dollar? With spending less.
Right.
Right?
It's hard.
You can't. You can't. Yeah, I mean, it's almost impossible. So you do need to spend the money on getting the most amount of exposure. But the top dollar with spending money versus not spending money, you could still get a top dollar with not spending a lot of money.
True.
It's still gonna be such a big difference.
Right.
Where, at the end of the day, it all pays out.
Well, listen, I think, and those are really great tips. So I think if I was to kind of summarize it, I would say, so if as a seller that's looking for an agent.
So number one is make sure that they're selling homes.
Right.
Right. First of all, check their Zillow profile. I mean, Zillows are really good. A lot of people actually go and check them. Make sure they have those 5-star reviews. They sold enough homes in that area.
Right. Interesting.
In order to, to completely trust them.
Right.
Make sure they have resources ask them what kind of marketing they do.
Right.
You know, in addition, the free syndication to Zillow, Realtor, and Trulia.
Right.
Right. Make sure how big is their team. Make sure you ask about that.
Right.
Are you the one who's taking the pictures? Are you the one who's doing staging consultation? Are you the one who's also working with the buyers?
Right.
You know,
right.
I think those like 3 major factors that the seller should ask their agent in order to determine whether to hire them or not.
Right. Those are really good points. To change gears a little bit now, when it comes to pricing, I think that a lot of people, and especially now, which is kind of touching on 2 things I want to talk about, which is pricing, and I want to talk about the market as a whole, right? Because they're kind of connected.
Yep.
A lot of people, a lot of sellers, are looking at the last 2 years, you know, and more specifically the last like 6 months to 9 months, where the market was hot. You know, things were really, you know, I mean, going 15, 20, 30 offers before when the interest rates were lower because, you know, money was cheaper from a mortgage perspective. Now, you know, maybe some sellers are still in that mindset. So they're thinking, you know, list higher, right? And then I'll drop the price lower. But how do you manage those expectations, and what advice would you have to the listeners who are thinking of listing their home, right? And are trying to figure out the right price?
Yep. No, it's actually a good question. I do sit down with a lot of sellers that are, you know, their mind is clouded by what's been happening in the past 2 years. And, well, that's number one. Number two, they are acting very sentimental towards their house because they've been there 10 years, 15, 20 years. So when I come in with non-biased opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. And I wanted to say that I'm very logical kind of person, and I'm all about statistics. Because at the end of the day, you know what? If this table costs $10, in this store, in this store, in this store, the chances are if you're going to go to one store and it's going to be $20,
right,
you're never going to buy that table.
Right.
Right. So when I come in, I make sure I have all the data. Once again, I mean, a lot of realtors, they're using just comp analysis.
Yeah.
Oh, homes sold in the area.
Yeah.
Right. Well, homes sold in the area, first of all, that's 6 to 12 months data.
Good point.
Right? It's not current data.
Right.
Right? They don't use appraisals, right?
Right.
Which we do. One of the most important things that I never heard anybody using it besides my team is market absorption report.
Interesting. What's that?
So market absorption report, it actually tells you what is the likely chance your house is going to sell.
Oh, wow. Based on a price point?
Well, based on many, many numbers.
Oh, okay.
And I would do that report right in front of the client.
Wow.
And, you know, at the end of the day, if they're looking at the report, well, if you list at this price, this is the chances, the percentages that you will likely to sell in the next 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Or this is the percentages that your house is going to be sitting on the market. So we actually dig a little bit deeper into doing market analysis for the house, and it's not just market analysis, it's also predicting how fast it's going to sell.
Right. Interesting.
So at the end of the day, I leave it in a seller's hands, all those numbers, and I tell them, hey, you could list at your price or what you're expecting for your house, or based on data, we can list it for market value. And guess what? Market value, I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's seller's market or buyer's market, market value, you're going to have a lot of exposure because of your pricing strategy, and you're going to have even more exposure because of all the exposure that we're offering with marketing.
Right. And that's really good. You know, and it brings me to like this, the when I remember when I was going through the process, it was $1 difference on the price, on the pricing, on the listing price.
Yep.
That can make a tremendous difference.
Well, you remember the house was on the market. It was $1 or $1,000 less.
Yeah.
And they got nowhere near as much as we did.
That's right.
Why? Because of certain strategies that I see. Obviously, I'm not going to disclose all
That's
my
right. No,
secrets.
don't disclose the secrets. That's right.
Yeah, but it is true. Sometimes you overprice or underprice by $1,000, and you're ending up with totally different buyers.
Yeah.
The buyers who can barely afford your house versus the buyers who can overpay.
Right. And people do tend to sometimes want a little more, and, you know, go over the price by bucket for something that makes sense. But that, you know, those are all interesting strategies, and I think they're important from the seller's perspective to keep in mind, especially as the market, even though the market seems scary now, I think that's one of the other things that I've picked up on a lot, you know, from chatting with clients, my own clients, and just getting a vibe and a feel for it. You know, people tend to be a little bit scared to list their house. And I think what would you say to somebody who might be scared to list their house to kind of ease their fears? What would your...
Well, here's the thing. It depends when you bought the house.
Right.
If you bought 5 years ago,
yeah,
and would sold a pre-COVID market, you would make some profit.
Yep.
Well, guess what? We're not in COVID. We're after COVID.
Yep.
But you would still get so much more money than pre-COVID.
Right.
Right?
Good point.
I mean, you're still going to get at least 20 to 30% more than you paid, 3 to 5 years ago.
Right.
At least.
That's true.
So if you're taking a look, if you're taking a look at the current situation, right, it might be a little bit scary. But if you're going to take a 5-year, period, because remember, at the end of the day, you're buying a home. It's a long-term investment, right?
That's right.
So you can't be looking like, oh my God, what is happening in the next month, 2 months, 6 months?
That's
you got to take a look at 5 years. Even if you're buying right now, well, you're not selling in 2 to 3 months from now.
Right.
Even the rates are going to go up and housing market might go down a little bit. You're buying that house to enjoy that house.
Right.
You're buying that house for your family.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah. Those are all really valid points. So I think that's a great summary with regards to the seller side. Now, what about flipping it to the buyer side? As far as if I'm a buyer, right? And I'm looking around and the inventory is not a lot of stuff out there because, again, some sellers might be a little bit scared, some whatever it is. What would your advice be to now, from the buyer's perspective, to managing the market?
Okay. That's actually a very good question. I've dealt with many buyers, and I've dealt with buyers that I've been working for years. Some of the buyers after 2 years, they're like, oh my God, I can't find my perfect house. My common thing that I say to my buyers is, if this house has 70% of things that you wanted in it,
okay,
you're in a really good position.
That's a good point.
You're never going to find a house that is going to be 100% to your liking.
Right.
Even if you build a house, and I've built quite a few homes.
Yeah.
Even if you build a house with your custom designs and custom, kitchen, bathroom, you're going to come in and you're going to say, oh, you know what, it doesn't look the way I envisioned before.
Right.
So in terms of the buyer, I always say that the best way to do is if you're trying to buy a house in the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Right? Study the market, let's say for 2 months. Go out, take a look at the homes.
I like that.
Right?
It's good.
And compare to what is happening on the market.
Mm-hmm. And when you say what is happening in the market, you mean our prices going down?
No, meaning that the conditions. Some people, they see that $800,000 home and they said, hey, I was expecting a little bit more things for $800,000.
Yeah. Yep.
So they go to another $800,000 home. They see the same thing. They go, and then they say, well, you know what?
Interesting.
It's expectations are not meeting the realities.
Right. And then you got to adjust your expectations.
Exactly. So the best way I wanted to say, if you're studying the market for 2 months, obviously you're going out there hopefully every single weekend and seeing what's on the market, and then compare and contrast what is currently on the market, the conditions and the prices.
Right.
Versus looking for that home. Meanwhile, your family is growing in a rental place or a smaller place, and you've been looking for 2-3 years and saying, like, I haven't met my perfect house yet.
Right. And I think that is also a tremendous value because from the consultant standpoint, like you're talking right now, like a consultant, right? Because if all you're doing as an agent, as a buyer's agent, is purely getting in your car and driving with that client or whatever it is, look at this, you're providing no consultation beyond just, I'm opening the door for you and go look.
Yep.
That is going to cause the stale, you're going to have some animosity a little bit because you're going to say, I've been looking for so long, but I can't find anything. Well, nobody has spoken to you about your expectations versus reality.
Yes. A lot of agents, they're afraid to talk to clients about their, expectations and reality.
Yeah.
And I hear a lot of complaints. They're saying like, oh my God, my client is so not realistic.
Right.
But what are you doing about it?
Yeah. Well, that's
are you actually being on the same page with your client? Are you actually discussing that with them? Or you're just like you said, opening the doors for them?
Yeah. Yep. And I think that differentiates now the buyer's agent piece, right? We talked about the seller's agent and you talked about the buyer, and now we're going to talk about the buyer's agent. And again, as I mentioned, from your approach at Balandin Realty is very client focused, very high end kind of consultation and feel, to your office, to your staff, to everybody. And that's the team that you're building by empowering them. So I think it's all connected. You know what I mean?
You're absolutely right. I mean, if you were thinking about going back to my mentor.
Yeah. Yep. Right.
So you're looking at a new agent that doesn't know anything. They do need mentorship, and that's exactly what I'm building. What I have at my brokerage is,
right.
If you're coming in as a new agent, or maybe you had a 1 or 2 years of experience, you're
right.
still not there in terms of the knowledge, because guess what? In the past 2 years, nobody taught you that.
Right.
You know, you could take a whole bunch of online classes,
true.
But if you don't have accountability coach, if you don't have somebody to call and reach out and say, hey, look, I'm stuck with such and such transaction.
Yeah.
What do I do? You know, chances are you're going to fall and you're going to learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
Trust me on one thing, those mistakes, it took me 4 to 5 years actually to get up and running.
Yeah.
And that's a typical time frame from an agent that is not on the right team.
Yeah. I'm actually curious, just for my own interest and kind of curiosity, what are some of those things that, as you said, I kind of run into and learn the hard way as an agent? What are some examples of something that may happen that'll...
First of all, a lot of agents, they get scared of buyers or sellers.
Interesting. Scared of them, like...
In terms of even to tell them the truth.
Oh, okay.
All right. I wanted to say, remember, the seller is there to sell. The buyer is there to buy.
Yep.
You are that bridge in the middle that needs to make sure that you buffer on one side, buffer on the other side, and bring them to a happy medium. Because at the end of the day, they both wanted to be involved in that transaction.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And a lot of agents are looking like, oh my God, my seller or my buyer is keep on bothering me and harassing me and keep on pushing and pushing and pushing.
Yeah.
But reality is, well, maybe you haven't had that heart-to-heart conversation with them.
Yeah.
Or reality conversation.
Right.
And explain to them the benefits of actually coming to a happy medium.
Yeah.
I'll give you a great examples and I feel like we're coming back to those ages when the buyer comes in and says, oh my God, this house is gorgeous, I wanted to buy it.
Yeah.
That's great, let's write up an offer.
Yeah.
And they're submitting a lowball offer. Right?
Right.
So many agents, they say, oh my God, let me write down that offer and let me start negotiating.
Right.
You know, however, I explained to the buyer that, well, think about this. If you would be a seller, first of all, would you accept that offer? And the buyer says, well, not exactly.
Right.
Okay, that's great.
I like that.
But you as a seller, how would you respond to that kind of offer? He would say, well, I'm not countering that offer, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, so now let's go back to you as a buyer. So you love that house, you wanted to submit the offer, you want to buy it, right?
Yeah.
Right. So what are you going to do? He's like, well, I'm going to bring up my offer. My question to that buyer then, well, hold on. So you're going to counter against yourself.
Right. Right.
And they have at that point, they have a aha moment and they're like, oh my God. I'm like, so you're negotiating literally against yourself.
Right.
Versus listening to me and coming in at the right offer price where we are going to get some kind of counter offer.
Yep. Which is a really, really good point. And I think that also ties into the relationship that your agent has with other agents. I think that the folks, you know, for you as, again, a brand, Roman Balandin Realty is well known. So when an agent from your brokerage is reaching out to another agent, because you've done this expectation management piece that you just described in your really good example, the seller's agent, you know, you're now talking and there's more of like that rapport to say, I'm not just lowballing you, right? The other person is coming in and saying, okay, well, here's the real talk from, you know, my seller's perspective. And I think that's huge. I think that's how you win offers, you know, in my kind of mentality of it from being on the outside.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I mean, well, think about this. Let's step back a little bit. Now, you're dealing, first of all, in my company, you're dealing with an educated agent.
Yep.
Who is not there to sell the house, but to educate their client.
Right.
They're also there, you know, to work with that opposite agent in the most professional manner.
That's right.
So before, back in the days, it was just me.
Right.
Who are doing this. Now I have a team of close to 20 people who are doing the same practice the business the same way.
Yeah.
Now it's
From your
the
boot camp.
snowball, starting from my boot camp, but it's a snowball effect where that's why we're recognized. Hey, I wanted to deal with Roman Balandin Realty team.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're professional. They educate people.
Yeah.
They know that once we get under contract, that agent is not going to disappear.
Right. That's very true.
He is going to be there, but on top of it, there is transaction team that comes into place, and people around this area, they understand, hey, transaction team, they manage a transaction.
Right. Right.
Which makes that agent actually respond to that phone call when the other opposite agent calls.
Right.
And there is some business or some negotiation that needs to be discussed, whether about inspection, about appraisal, or anything like that.
Right. That's really good. And you kind of brought up this point that, you get the offer accepted. And sometimes some agents would kind of almost disappear and let the process run itself afterwards. And there are so many things that I've learned, I guess, that after the offer accepted, and even after under contract, that could still happen, that you need to still be present and be hands-on on the situation to make sure that the deal goes smoothly. So, can you give us some examples of the things that the realtor would do as the deal is progressing along?
I mean, one of the first steps, obviously, attorney review.
Right.
And sometimes during the attorney review, somebody doesn't like the date. Sometimes, no offense to all my favorite attorneys and all attorneys out there, but the attorney language is kind of authoritative.
Right.
Rigid, it's standard, rigid. You get that letter, and a lot of people, they get scared. One of the managing of expectations.
Right.
When the buyer side attorney sends that rider, the first rider, and the seller side response says, we deny everything, and here's our rider.
Right.
At that point, the buyer themselves, when they see it, they're petrified. I've seen so many buyers, they're like, oh my God, they're not accepting our offer. I was like, no, come down. This is the standard way how attorney communicate.
Yeah, which is how, again, we learned that on episode 2. We spoke to the attorney as when it comes to riders, which is what you're talking about, which really all riders is bringing up their points that they want to change, bringing up another points that you want to change. And it's a process that eventually becomes together and becomes the official contract, and then you're under contract, right?
Yep. So this is one of the first ones. The second I typically see during the inspection.
Oh, yes, good point.
When a buyer requests 26 items.
Yeah.
And then instead of passing back and forth amongst the attorneys, the listing agent would come back to the buyer's agent and they say, hey, listen, find out from your client.
Yeah.
26 is a bit too much. How about we're going to fix 10, we're going to give you a credit XYZ.
Yeah.
Find out from your buyer if they would accept it before we start communicating between the attorneys, because they could come back a little bit different way, and the buyer is going to get scared that they're not fixing anything.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think you really nailed it. True. A lot of people end up waiting for that inspection moment. It's almost like this, you get through the process of the nerve-wracking offer accepted. Finally, you get the offer accepted. You're excited. Now you're under contract. Now you're like, okay, I need this inspection done, because now the real, let's dig up behind the walls, in the basement and all of that. And you're almost wanting to find something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? From the buyer side. You're almost wanting to find something because you want some sort of credit, something to get fixed or lower the price.
Yeah.
So again, expectation management is really
well,
cool.
When you were bringing an inspection, there is, obviously I've been to a lot of inspections, and sometimes to a first-time home buyer or second-time home buyer, a cracked tile, they would think that, oh my God, the foundation is really bad in this house. Meanwhile, it's a previous owner's kid dropped, a rock on a tile
or whatever.
Yeah, so it's managing actually throughout the inspection, also managing the. So you as a buyer's side realtor, you're managing expectations not only your client, but also managing expectations of the listing agent,
right?
And also you need to be in communication with the attorney,
right?
So it's actually you're managing. It's a juggling act between all of those people.
Yep, and managing the expectations and not getting anybody to freak out and not getting anybody to cancel. And sometimes these people, the seller might have another backup offer or 2 or 3 or 4, and they might say, that's it. I'm almost, I want to go to the backup offer.
By the way, the last but not least in the transaction, the appraisal. You remember our appraisal?
Yes, I do. And I was going to bring that up because I think that's another pitfall that's a very scary moment, right? Because you as a buyer, don't want to have to, come up with more money if the house does not appraise. So from the appraisal standpoint, and we didn't get a chance to catch on that in the other episode. So from the appraisal standpoint, what are they doing, right? They're coming in and they're trying to get an idea of the value of the house from the bank
Yeah,
standpoint?
I mean, pretty much they're looking at the homes around the area. They have a basic algorithm.
Right.
Like, think about this. You're an appraiser. You come in inside the house.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about it.
Right.
However, that algorithm tells you that this type of homes, this type of square footage, 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, are selling between, 5 to 600.
Right.
Right. But then the appraiser comes in, and based on their visual
Inspection or
visual inspection, they do pluses or minuses. If it has a finished basement, it's plus certain sum. If they have upgraded kitchen, it's plus this.
Right.
Or if they don't have an upgraded kitchen, it's minus this, based on the homes that are sold in that area.
Right.
So that's essentially what the appraiser does.
Right.
Now, appraiser doesn't care whether you spend $200,000 on your kitchen or $50,000. They're just gonna write upgraded kitchen. And upgraded kitchen is a certain amount of dollars.
Right. Plus X amount.
Plus X amount. Now, going back to the pricing strategy.
Right.
We did have multiple offers. Going back to backup offers that we had. I mean, based on all of that, going back to negotiating the deal that we did because that buyer waived their appraisal.
Right.
I had some ammunition to come back and telling them that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
If you're out, we have 4 other offers on the table who are willing to take it at that price.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it starts from the beginning, from that first moment, shake hand. Yeah. And when we sat down and I said, my name is Roman.
Yep.
And lay down the plan, how we're going to list, what's going to happen, what could happen, because at that point I didn't know, but I did mention many, many scenarios that could have happened if we were listed at the different prices.
Right. So really it comes down to, and as we kind of wrap this up, really expectation management from both, on the realtor side, both on the buyers and on the seller side, and then smoothing out the deal as you're going along and making sure that everybody is on the same page and everybody is happy. And you can get to an amicable medium where the buyer is happy and feeling like they got a good deal, and the seller is happy and feeling like, they got what they've kind of deserved for this monumental asset of their lives. And managing that from the realtor's perspective is an art.
Yes, I do agree. Like I said, at the end of the day, both people, they want to be in that transaction.
Right.
Yeah. But it's up to the realtor to actually make it happen.
Yeah. And the listeners hopefully got a lot of value out of Roman. Roman is with Roman Balandin Realty. And, Roman, how can they contact you if they're looking to sell their home or to buy a home? Where would the best place be to contact you?
I mean, if you just go to NewJerseyResidence.com or just Google Roman Balandin Realty, I mean, you could even check us out and Google top real estate agency in New Jersey or Marlboro, Manalapan. We're going to pop up right there, but you could inquire online. We have a listing form. We also have a home evaluation form. So if you click on a couple of links, you could actually, if you don't want to contact us but wanted to just find out the price of your home, you could click on that link. But even if you call the main number, somebody will definitely be able to help you.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much again for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you
for having me here.